Yes. Okay. And it's 8 o'clock, and I'd like to convene this impromptu meeting. Thanks for everybody for coming. We now have a quorum. Wendy, if you want to just take minutes and note that Tony and Jed are both excused because they have medical appointments this morning. So we barely have a quorum here. And I've gotten word back from MJ. Let me just fix my phone here so it stands again. I got word back from MJ that she'll try to squeeze us in the select board meeting that will occur prior to the commission's deadline of the 25th. If we have problems there, I guess I'll get her to go ask Tupper for a couple of extra days, and then do that at the submit this at the meeting after that if there's some problem there.
It should be on the schedule for the 19th. We discussed it on Tuesday night, so right now
Excellent.
It's tentatively set for the 19th.
Okay. With that, let me get people's general impressions on this report, and then figure out how to.
I'm sorry,
how to put
real quickie. Is that 19th of April or 19th of March?
Oh, March.
Next week, March.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, we have to submit this by
I know.
the 25th. So that that puts kind of a huge time pressure on us for a 60-page report.
Yeah.
Okay. General comments on this before we try to put a letter together.
I thought it was good. There was I've got a full page and a half of notes here.
Yeah, me too.
Covering various pages. There was a lot of emphasis on underserved and totally unserved population, but they don't seem to exactly nail down where or that is. And to be blunt, that is absolutely a problem. But I think the bigger thrust of this committee is really the fact that, at least south of the bridge, the whole town has issues, one way or the other. Some of them small, some of them large. But I understand that the Cape Cod Commission would be focused in an area where the grant funding is most prevalent. So there was a lot of talk about, the high school kids or school kids who don't have a computer, or who have very limited internet access, or they have to do it through making a hotspot with their phone. And there was a small area there where they touched on one specific page about the fact that the biggest complaint, and they nailed it, was the fact that, and we know statistically this is true, that the biggest problem is that service is unreliable and intermittent, and that's it's a little bit more difficult to quantify, and I'm not sure exactly where that leaves us in terms of dollars. They also talked about the town becoming more involved in a number of areas that are going to require money. And there are no answers there. They did bring up some good points about supplementing the town IT staff, which is definitely called for. They talk about fixing the library Wi-Fi, which should be an easy fix, and that's good. And they talked about perhaps creating funding for families that have very little or no equipment, and how the town could supply or lend them the equipment. The same thing with the library. They talked about the library being able to lend more equipment, and also the fact that that people literally, that I wasn't aware of this, park outside the library to use the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we could fix that with a simple external Wi-Fi antenna. So that's not even long and involved. It's directional antenna too, because it doesn't need to beam back into the building. Just one of those flat panels, exterior rated, and call it a day.
There are people on the Cape, in fact, a couple of whom I gave Wendy the name of at one point, who specialize in doing these kind of professional network for commercial installations.
Yep.
And, you know, I know when I worked in a large building in Boston, they had all of this solved, including the fact that we had part of the building was very well shielded by steel and concrete, and we simply had we had a receiver, a repeater up on the roof that tied into AT&T, who was the company provider at that time, and how you could get it any place. You could pick up the company Wi-Fi any place in the building. There was just no problem at all. So that is a very fixable thing, and that's something that I would think that they need to do right away.
Well, let's not, John, let's not get too far into the weeds on
Okay.
this. We've got a lot to
Yeah.
comment on, and I don't want to take much time here. One point about the library is I got an email from one of the members of the library trustee board who said that they definitely wanted to remedy some of the things that were called out in the report, and they wanted to know the details of applying for one of the digital equity implementation $100,000 grants, or applying with that. And I was thinking what we should ask the commission for is their guidance or perhaps their recommendations on what the town should apply for in one of those $100,000 grants.
Well,
And,
they called out a few of the needs specifically in there that would dovetail directly into that. It looked like it was written ready to go, basically.
But I want to call that out specifically for the select board, to say that we're going to go for that. You know, let's figure out where we go from here. You know, they've got a lot of some specific and some very general comments, but how do we use this to go forward to remedy all of the digital equity needs? One of the asks, I think, is do we want the commission, in their opinion, to say that all of the Cape is underserved based on problems with reliability, you know, with service speed, etc. And so we can send that back. This goes back to MBI to get. We've been trying to get MBI to do that declaration via a number of different means. But if the commission goes and asks for that, you know, that is going to have a lot more weight than you know, maybe just the you know, our request from the town of Bourne. We've already done that, and you know, all we hear is radio silence from the MBI right now.
I'm surprised.
Well, they seem to be saying that right in the report. I mean, I read the thing over. Like I said, I've got, you know, page by page notes, and they're absolutely pointing out that we're not the only one. That there is a real problem with reliability. But the other thing that they point out is that the town needs to get involved with asking for money. And we know we've already had this discussion about the fact that due to limited resources, the problem with managing grants is an issue. So, I mean, I put a lot of question marks around that and saying, well, okay, fine, they're telling us what to do. They're saying grants are available, but it seems like the only way we're going to get any grant money applied is if we funnel it towards the existing providers.
Wait a second on that. You know, there is absolutely no reason whatsoever why a grant application cannot include financial support for admin personnel, secretarial help, whatever the hell, to take that terrible burden away from the town. If we just accept that at face value and say, oh, well, then, you know, we can never apply for anything because the town just, you know, has told us that we can't, then we may as well just quit now.
Well,
So I think
how
that's
do we do that? Because there's a hierarchy
But
involved, and
we have to start adding some admin overhead into our budgets for sure.
Right.
It's
And
the critique is well founded.
And the way we front load it is we get just a sec, Anne Marie. The way we front load that is to take another one of the recommendations, which was to give our committee more responsibility and more ability to do stuff that's useful. We could probably get that grant largely written with no cost for admin things for the town. That doesn't mean that we would administer it. That doesn't mean that we would be signing up for any contracts, but we could prepare the necessary paperwork at no cost to the town. That's one thing that really struck me on this.
I'd like to hear from Anne Marie, because I sense that the town administration wants to, and they have every right to control certain things, and so they have to oversee this stuff, and I don't know whether or not they're in the position to do it.
So
They're
I
in a
think there's
position to use us.
there's two things at play, right? The ability to write the grant and the ability to administer the grant, right? So administration of the grant becomes the entity of the town because it's a contract with the town.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I don't think it's out of the possibility, if we have the recommendation or the Cape Cod Commission in what we're saying here with our response, specifically to what we should be applying for and what grants we should be applying for, that we go before the select board and say, this is the recommendation of the Cape Cod Commission. Can, as a committee, do we have the responsibility, can we have the responsibility of writing the grant, maybe perhaps with guidance from the Cape Cod Commission, because that's the recommendation they're making to the town through this grant fund and trying to attain digital equity across the community.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Wendy, like you said, and Brian too said it earlier, that within the context of the grant process, we provide administrative responsibilities to take that burden off town hall.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately there would be oversight.
Will they let that go? Will they let that go?
I think if we present it in such a way with enough information based on what, because we still, this is just the period of time where we can respond to their findings. This isn't the last step, right? Because there's more to come from this. This is the plan. Now we have an opportunity to respond to what's in the plan. Well, I'm going to guess, how do we implement the plan is going to be the next step, right?
Well,
they
So
discuss
and I think the
it.
town administrators' feedback, they don't have enough capacity. We really do need to consider that in how we write these grants, because before we weren't considering that, and we need to budget what amount of time and resources for administration, whether they have to be funded by the grant itself or allocated from other things. So,
They pointed out. Yeah, they pointed out in the back that there's an opportunity for a fellowship, which is a finite term position. But potentially we could share it with. I think Sandwich has a digital equity plan in preparation right now. We could perhaps share a position with Sandwich to administer these grants. And again, that's somebody who is for a finite amount of time is seconded to the town. I don't know where they would come from, but seconded to the town to do these, a lot of the details of trying to build the bridges among all the organizations, which the town administration has no capacity to do. Really,
it's actually 3 towns on the Cape, so we probably could go 3 ways with all 3 towns that have contracted with the Cape Cod Commission for the digital equity plan. It would be the natural. All 3 of them, if we can get together and have a point person, connector or whatever they want to call it, or they call it something in the report.
Navigator.
Maybe I'm getting too old and cynical for my tender years, but I have not so far, with all due respect, Anne Marie, I have not seen a lot of support out of the town administration for any of this stuff. All I hear is, oh, we can't do that. No, you can't do that. We're not interested in your help on doing that. Why don't you just all go away? And
Well,
maybe I'm misreading that, but I think that that's a very significant problem. And I know I'm not the only person that thinks that. So I'd like to know if you have any insight into how we can turn that around.
Well, the charge of the committee is to make recommendations, right? It's
Mhm.
to formulate how we can best bring better cable internet and telecommunications into the community, right? For the
Broadly
community.
spoken, that's true.
So our charge is to make recommendations to the select board, right? And I don't think it's not that they don't understand and realize the need. The process is really long and complicated. We can't just come up and say, we need better speed testing because, why do we need better speed testing? What's the plan? How are we going to, do you know what I mean?
We told them all that.
Yeah, but the select board can't make decisions for the school committee. So we can't go to the school committee and say, we want you to do speed testing. We can't even tell them we can fund it. It all has to be done through them and right? So through that entity. That's not, and here's the disconnect because that's not the charge of the committee. We advise the select board. So that's a tough barrier. It's not that we don't support and understand the need. The directive and the recommendation isn't in the purview of the select board. So we have some big ticket items on the table with respects to priority. This plan isn't something, it's not being disregarded because they contracted the Cape Cod Commission. They put out this digital equity plan for the town. We have a contract. This, we have to follow through with the next steps on this as a town, right? So once this goes, because Liz, our assistant, our facilities, the assistant town administrator, this is part of her task is to follow through with what's happening with this digital equity plan and has to see it through. So maybe through this process, this committee does get designated as, okay, these are the next steps we want to take. We want to go after this grant. They know that this committee is willing and able to help in that process.
They do.
Right? So.
Well, they know because we've told them that, but I haven't heard it come out of their mouths.
Well,
Anne-Marie, it's a very awesome concern to point it out like this because, since we don't come from the government background, we don't always have that context that you have that, okay, the school committee is independent. Because I vision that we're going to need to work with the school committee, the select board, and the library with any of these digital equity plans. So, how many independent bodies is the library independent?
Well,
okay.
Just for one example, the library trustees are an elected body. Okay, so they within the constraints of the budget that gets approved by the town meeting. I won't say they can do anything they want, but they can work independently. They don't necessarily have to go through the select board, for instance, to comment on this report. I think they're preparing their own comments on this report right now.
Right. And that's going to be the connection though, Brian, right? Because this plan comes from the town. It doesn't come from us. It comes from the town. So that's our connection to the opportunities. If at the end of the day, when the final plan comes out, the next steps might be such that we need to go after grant funding.
Yeah,
right?
I think
And
some of the
as
way
a
the report is
committee,
written is for that.
And as a committee, this committee, and they know that, and I know that, and the select board knows that is willing and able to help in any way they can with that next step. If that's right.
Yeah, I think we all want to help figure out what the next step is to maximize these dollars, since we got a real opportunity if we handle the politics and cross the silos here, that we can possibly, this can be a cascading multiplier here. If we correctly help this get done, we might have the data to get more and more grants after this. So it's a messy process, but it's one we kind of need to navigate to successfully get more funding.
Exactly. And if we continue to be the broken record, right, of saying this is a need, this continues to be a need, advise the select board, that path's going to be set. I mean, this is the start of that path, without a doubt, right? This is the start of that
Yeah, 'cause
path.
I see
So
I see a solid path laid out in amongst these 60 pages. It's like, okay, so we got everyone going to the library for Wi-Fi. That's an easy $500,000 antenna pointed outside the building to get the signal better. You know, you got a need there's a lack of data in the children, and there seems to be demand for loaner devices. So, and there's a lack of speed testing data. And so these all kind of play together pretty well. And the one oddball item that concerned me that I wanted to reach out to the school committee was the cost of the insurance on the Chromebooks. That was a little curious item, because those things can be as cheap as $150 and maybe up to $500. Like, so what kind of insurance plan are they on them? I kind of went on the internet and found it was like $2 or $3 a month. So are they locked into some kind of contract that makes these Chromebooks much more expensive? That was a concern.
right, and maybe that's a question that we need to ask, and put it on an agenda item and have a discussion at least, and
Are we allowed to talk about
That's
that if that's the school board?
well, we
Sure.
can talk about how that plays into town-wide, digital equity as
They're
part
one
of
of
the
the big
charge, right?
stakeholder groups,
Yeah.
they're,
I'm-
This is-
Yeah, 'cause they are.
I agree with you on that, but maybe I misheard you, Anne-Marie, but I heard that we were allowed to advise the select board, but we're not allowed to interact with anybody else.
No, not interact. We can ask questions. What
Ah,
we can't do is make decisions that belong to the school committee. We can
Uh-huh.
gather information because they are a stakeholder
mhm.
and ask them pertinent questions relative to our charge. Absolutely. But we can't say or make decisions about them doing speed tests on their Chromebooks, right?
Can we ask
I-
them to make a decision and make it promptly?
We can have the conversation with them to say, this is what we're discovering. This is what we're finding.
Yeah.
This is where the needs are. Yes, we can do that. And
All
when
right.
we
We
give
need to
our
share
report
with them that
again
there's
to
a
the
multiplier.
select board, we can include, the difficulties that perhaps exist within our schools as well, which this document speaks to. So,
Yeah, they might not be aware that these grants they feed into each other, because the lack of awareness has caused problems in the past with other grants that could have been amplified had people known. So I think it's important that we get in front of the school committee contacts and share with them the kind of information we discovered. Like, hey, if we work this out carefully, where like you guys get some Chromebooks, we put some speed testing data on it, everyone gets better data on the children's internet access, and potentially we unlock millions and millions of dollars and more funding. Can we all work out a plan together that everyone can live with, plus, have 20% for administrative, paperwork headache, since we might need to share a point person with the commission and a couple other towns in order to handle all of this.
so then how do we connect that with this, there's definitely language within this plan that references the school. So what bullet point do we need to make in our feedback to, this plan?
I think what Brian just said, I think that's your bullet point right there.
Well, it's interesting, but they specifically point out on page 37 of the report the difficulty in applying for grants due to understanding and personnel. I mean, the Cape Cod Commission already had it figured out that we don't have, and I personally sympathize with the select board. They've got a lot of major stuff on their plate, and as important as we know this is, they've got funding shortfall. They've got stuff having to do with septic systems, layoffs, all kinds of stuff. And I mean, in terms of hierarchy, they only have so much time. So the issue is that at the same time, they've run into problems before with funding that has been unsupervised, that have turned out to be embarrassing. So they want to supervise all this stuff, but as the commission points out, they don't quite understand how to go about it. And I think maybe the way to do it is to get the Cape Cod Commission to kind of hold their hand and say, okay, here's what you need to do. maybe you could lean on some of these people to help you draft a grant, or maybe we can supply you with someone that can help draft a grant, and then you reimburse us a certain amount of money from the received grant. Because we're just not gonna, we're going against a brick wall here.
Is there
Maybe
anybody in
we
the
get the-
commission that would do that? I mean, can they do that? Is that part of their remit?
They talk about regionalization all through the whole thing. Maybe with we get them to submit not individual town grant applications, but kind of regional or town cluster, Upper Cape grant applications, and they manage it. Okay, they've got the best view of where these constituencies are, where these stakeholder groups are, and they have a reasonable idea of the resources available in town. They've talked to everybody. Maybe they be the the digital navigator or whatever. They pull it together, and they do the grant application on behalf of the towns of Bourne and Sandwich, and I guess it's Orleans or whatever. With the possibility of getting other towns to sign on when their digital equity plans get done. That would take the burden off the town. The town is obviously very comfortable with working with a commission. I mean, right now the county government supplies all the IT support inside town hall. They send somebody in all the time, and they're very happy with that.
Anne Marie?
That's an idea.
So just piggybacking off of that, one of the things on page 37 that you were talking about, John, my question is, like, time intensive, they said when they spoke with the grants and the speed and the deadlines and the amount of work and time, et cetera, they, at the very end of 37, they said you need to develop time intensive partnerships or resources required to further streamline efforts and build a resource network. What does that mean? Like, we need examples of how to do that.
Well, we could help
When they
with that.
stated that,
they-
what are they talking about? What's time intensive partnerships? With
That
who?
means- that
What
means they're gonna-
resources are they talking about? And streamline efforts, what does that mean? Like,
That
how do
means-
we do that?
Well, I think the people in this committee can do a lot of that for them if they let
Well,
them.
Right, but we need to ask, this was a statement made in the
It's a bit of a
document
word
itself.
salad.
It
Yeah,
is.
there's a
It
lot of
is.
that. There's a lot of boilerplate stuff in here that I'm sure appears in all
Oh,
the
yeah.
reports they
Oh
generate.
yeah, there's tons of that.
Right,
But
right.
But yeah, Anne Marie,
It's
I
easy
read
to
I read
say.
that line too. It's a mouthful, and I was like, oh dear God, how are we going to do that?
see, this
What
is
is
the
that?
thing.
But put the onus on them. You recommended this. How do we do that?
So I think we might need to start compiling the list of what everyone's found in here. Like, since if everyone sent it off to Bob, and we can maybe start seeing what we all agree on based on what we grabbed. Because I think I sent 5 or 6 points over to Bob of things I flagged, and maybe multiple people have flagged stuff, and maybe we should start committing this to a piece of paper.
Let's one question I have. Can we get Liz to ask for a couple of extra days grace on providing the comments? That would allow us more time to get it together. Frankly, I would like to hear Tony and Jed's comments on this. It basically gives us breathing room. Anne Marie, is there a meeting on the select board meeting on the 26th?
It's the sewer commissioners, the last one of the month. So we are really pressed for time.
Yeah.
But, if they could, I don't know, like if they give us a couple days, then I don't know the answer to that. Sometimes it's tough. They may be under a deadline too, and some kind of time constraint. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, it's worth the ask, but I think we should move along such that it may not come to fruition, that we get extra time. And not, I mean, we need to put this in front of the board next week because, like I said, the last Tuesday of the month is sewer commissioners, so it's not select board business. And then now we're looking into April.
Right.
Yeah, we might have a squeeze gap in there depending on how MBI adjusts the requirements for round 2. So I'm not going to discuss that right now. We'll talk to that later.
What's the deadline again? I'm not quite sure what the deadline.
25th.
The 25th.
Okay, 25th. Okay.
It would, okay. Well, I'm just trying to think of how to do this. Wendy, can I put the burden on you? You're a better typist and organizer than I am, and I've also got a hand brace on right now, so my typing is one-handed.
I'm in a wheelchair,
Wendy-
but my typing's not affected.
So,
You're
so Wendy,
what?
do you
Are
have,
in a wheelchair?
Yeah,
You
I
just-
sprained both my ankles. I'm not gonna die. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
oh,
jeez.
Wendy,
Yes.
do you have bullet points right now that you can possibly put up or even verbalize for
Well,
responses?
I've been taking notes here.
Yeah.
Well, maybe who's got
if
the
you-
long? John probably has the longest
Yeah.
have.
notes. It sounds like.
Okay.
So maybe we start adding to John's list.
Well, I can show you my list. I mean, it's just basically my reactions to stuff, and I'll share it
That's fine.
Yeah.
If you want,
here
if you
in a
could,
moment.
if everybody could send
Hold
me
on,
those.
let me-
Whoa, something happened.
Okay,
if
there.
everybody-
I'm just sharing that just for a moment so you can see
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
what I put together, and it's just basically my notes based
Yep.
on what I read in the pages and how I responded to it.
Yep.
So if you want to build on that, or I can send that to Bob. It's just it's very rudimentary. I just was points for discussion basically as to. I mean, I think we all kind of read into the report
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the same stuff, which is it's a good start, but it left a lot of questions unanswered.
I think if you
And
can
I had a
send,
few
if you
concerns
can
with the
send me
data.
that, if you can send me that, and if anybody else has stuff, that's analogous to that, I can, throw that together into some prioritized action points, or at least sorted action points. That's not a problem. There were a couple of things that I sent to Bob already. The questions that I had was there was some discussion in the report about a municipal fiber grant program. Can we
Oh yeah.
Can we really hammer on that, because I really think that's starting to look like the way to go. And I know this is scary.
It's the 250 we could turn into $1 million again with
Yes.
BEAD if we're careful.
Yes. And I know this is scary for the select board, and they don't want to think about it because they've got too much on their plate, and I understand that. But this is sort of a strike while the iron is hot thing. That's one thing that came up to me. The other was on the GAP grant program. The report does not note that our ISP letters of support were conditional, and we don't even know if they were used. So I don't think we can rely on that unless we know that.
No
Well,
one
would
know,
it- it
no one
wouldn't be in
knows
this
who
report.
that.
Nobody
would
knows
it?
exactly. And does that
That
mean
wouldn't
that
be in this report, though.
it's not?
It wouldn't be. Why would it be in this report?
Well,
They
because it's,
mentioned our letters of support, and they didn't mention they were conditional. But they noted that no one knows what Verizon's doing, basically.
right. And it does say that if an ISP gets GAP money, it says they will be connected by the end of 2026 and get a guaranteed 120. Really? Where's the guarantee on that? So,
The terms of the money would be clawed back by MBI if
Yeah.
that.
Well, there's
so.
that. But besides that, and I knew that you guys were going to come up with a lot of action items like John's list. So I was looking more at the language of these things, because that's my thing. I saw more than anything in this report a lot of weasel language. There's the town may do this, this may happen, this may mean, this may include. The problem with that language is while factually correct from a linguistic standpoint, when you say something may happen, the back of your mind says, oh, and it may not. And once you've planted that little seed, even subconsciously, that makes it really easy for people to just brush it away.
Are these recommendations, or are these things that they found currently? Do you have a couple examples?
All of the above. I went through this, and I mean, it says we may, It may also include regional partnerships and but this means we could do that. Not, I know this is just some people may think this is a linguistic, minor point, but when you say it can create a barrier, well, it does create a barrier. Things like that. Saying it can, it may, it might, it could. That takes away responsibility for action. It takes away
Well, they don't have
agency.
any responsibility. That's the whole thing. That
Well, that
they
takes away agency from anybody. It means, yeah, well, maybe, it's just.
Well, ultimately, this is their recommendations. They can't tell the town what to do. It's more like here are a set of options. So I think when the things are unclear, like the word salads, those are the ones we might want to shoot back. Or like, hey, we need a little more clarity on this. What does this mean, and how do we do that?
How about this sentence? It says outreach strategies that are grounded in information only available digitally, like through an online newsletter or website, may not reach all residents. No, they do not reach all residents.
And they did a very good job of pointing out how particularly certain pockets of population, particularly seniors, may not be in any way in touch with any of this stuff. I mean, you talk to people and
they are not in touch.
Well, it depends on who you are. I mean, I have neighbors, some of whom are very tech savvy and others not so much. And you only hear about it on the Bourne Facebook page, maybe if those people are on Facebook. And what I suspect is that the problems are much more widespread, and they kind of hint at this in the report because they don't have any data to back it up. They specifically talk about the fact that they didn't get enough feedback from young families, and I think that's extremely important from an educational standpoint.
But from the feedback that they did get at the open meeting that we all attended, or that several of us attended, this May stuff is out the window. We know that these things are occurring. These things are neglected. These things are not being done. These things are not happening. And saying may, I think, in my opinion, as a language person, makes it too easy for people to slide right over that. You may.
I understand your point, Wendy.
Uh-huh.
But to Brian's point too, like I get what you're saying because it's been ongoing for so long. But unless they have 100% accuracy with their data, they can't use those terms in this kind of plan because they don't have the backup for it, right? They have verbal, so maybe that's what we point out, Wendy. Maybe we point out that the data they did collect wasn't sufficient enough to, right? So the process they use for collection data, maybe they need to do more in order to get more fine-tuned answers. And it is in draft, and it is a great, having the opportunity to respond is important. So how do we phrase that so they have an understanding?
I'm hoping that we can take some of this may, should, can, possibly language and turn that around into something that spurs action on the people that you're telling me have to do the acting. They have to bring it up on their list of priorities.
I think the generalized feedback I'm hearing from you, Wendy, and the way that kind of harmonizes what we're all trying to say about this is the areas where they have stronger data, they might want to use stronger language. And and then leave it alone on the areas where they don't have as good data, because I think occasionally when they use this may too much, it undermines how much work they actually did, because some of these things I know that they had a lot more data on and they're just using wishy-washy words. So like maybe that might be the generalized feedback, like those areas where you definitely know something is more likely than not true, just go ahead and use more active language, something like that.
Well, more likely
because it does have an impact.
Isn't hard data either, but I think we can say where there is a lack of hard data, this should spur the town into facilitating getting it.
Well, the only way I can think of that they could actually get almost all the data would be literally a mass mailing with prepaid return envelopes. I just think that people are, you're just not going to get, I mean, the thing I read into this report was we have a lot of data, but it's nowhere near complete. And we're particularly missing certain areas, young people and some
Mhm.
older people in particular, that
They're
they
just-
just can't reach.
Those are your student
That actually
Chromebooks.
plays to our advantage. So that's
Yep.
actually a gift, because that dovetails right into the next set of grants. So I view that as an opportunity, not a
Mhm.
weakness in the report. The fact that they're pointing it out means they are aware of the grant landscape and taking that into account.
Right. The question is, can we generate enough solid data to, say emphatically, hey, we have a problem. Here's the numbers. This is what we have, and it's very conclusive. What I read into this report was we did the best we could to collect data, but there was a lot of stuff that's missing because, I mean, these meetings were not all that well attended. They talk about the fact that there was a geographical barrier with having a meeting over on the other side of the bridge, and that people can't get there. And people are just, honestly, too many people are just too damn busy to respond to a lot of this stuff, unless you hit them right in the face with it. So I mean, there is, I'm concerned that what they're saying is we need more information in order to apply for these grants and be sure that we get them. And right now there just seems to be no way to get it because there seems to be it's all of this seems to be lower on the priority list of the town than other things, and I get
Precisely.
that. I just wish.
Well,
that
we load the Chromebooks that they're saying the students need with speed testing, have a report back, and we get all the data. The school gets their Chromebooks. We figure out the insurance issue and why these Chromebooks aren't rugged enough and why they're overpaying for insurance. So solve a known issue that they came up with. Solve a problem for people instead of just delivering them new problems.
Mhm.
And figure out a way to, what's the budget we need for the speed test? What's the budget for the Chromebooks? What's the budget for an antenna on the side of the library? And, talk to everybody to let them know, like, hey, this is lining us up for our future digital equity grants with the speed data. It's lining us up for network building grants with the data. It's possibly all the different grants for the school system they could ever possibly need based on the students' internet usage, because they'll have everything they could possibly want to know about that. And I think we need to work with the commission to kind of explain all this because they're trusted by everybody.
What we need is for them to put together a draft roadmap for the whole thing. Just one suggested roadmap to show the details, because we're kind of at a loss in a number of different areas to get from this to something that's very specific. Do we hire what do they call it? A digital equity fellowship? Do we hire a fellow for 2 years to put a roadmap together? We probably don't have time for that if the
No, we
grants are going to be
don't.
coming out later this year.
The way I read that, I think those guys aren't going to be available until you've already got a plan to implement. They're not there to help you plan.
Well, the next slug of money is network building, so I think we need to figure out how to maximize that in such a way that it also sets us up for unknown future grants.
Well, isn't there grant money available for data collection or methods that could be used for data collection?
So what feedback do we need to give this digital equity plan draft in order to accomplish that?
First, we need them to be more clear about, more
What
clear about
bullet
what the
point?
roadmap is.
What bullet point? Then that's right. Then, do you know what I mean? Like, we can tell them the how is, we're putting the cart before the horse. We have recommendations on how to accomplish it, but how do we respond to this draft in order to get to that step?
Is our response to the Cape Cod Commission or to the Select Board?
It's the Select Board asking the Cape Cod Commission. Again, this letter is going to come from the Select Board.
I understand that, but is there a subtext that we are making recommendations to the Select Board as to what they should be asking for and why?
That's what we do.
We're making
Well, yes.
recommendations on we're creating a public response for the Select Board to give back to this draft plan.
That sounds kind of limited.
Well,
But
that's the way it has to be done
that's
because
what we're doing.
yeah.
So my point is, what feedback do we give in order to get closer to the how? We know a lot of how here. We know how implementation, right? We're trying to get to implementation. This digital equity plan is a draft for attaining digital equity in the town of Bourne. This is the recommended plan. So our bullets have to speak to what points are made in this plan to get to implementation of so that the final draft has a more specific plan of implementation, right? That's and that's not easy.
No kidding.
I think the number one, we need to be like, okay, number one thing in this report that we think is important is the lack of data in the school age population, especially around their access to the internet. That one is the one that can trigger the most funding. That's the one that has the most flexibility, is getting more money. So I think we need to say that that is the most important point. How do we go about executing? How do we go about implementing this?
And the data that comes from that can feed into a whole lot of other things. That'll tell you more about the unserved areas, for example.
Right.
Or
So
about
lack of
Emery there.
data. Sorry. So lack of data in is it just the school age population?
No,
Because-
it's not, but it
Right.
would tell you at least about underserved areas where kids live, because they're everywhere.
Yeah,
right,
so
they
whole
are, but
across
we
the
have a
canal
very
side.
we also have a highly, the average age in town is 54. We're not young.
Well, so yeah, it's everybody across the
So-
canal has an issue with their survey.
Right? When you look at that
Mm.
type of demographic, yes, but the data just doesn't, is not
The
just
data isn't specific
to,
enough.
I think it just isn't specific to school age. This data with respects to how we calculate what's the definition of underserved and unserved, that's our disconnect. We need to connect that. Their definition of underserved and unserved is very different from our definition, right? Of unserved and underserved as a committee and what we're experiencing in the community.
Well,
I think that's the key in trying to get the understanding of this is real Cape wide. It's not just about our uploads, downloads. It's not just about who has a gadget and who doesn't have a gadget. It's all encompassing. Even people with gadgets are underserved by our definition,
yeah, we know
but
that.
not theirs. So how do we get that message across?
Well, the best data you can get from that geographically in the town of Bourne is by using the student Chromebooks, because those are spread out in every area. And if I have a kid next door that has a Chromebook that shows that, terrible speed tests up, down, and sideways, yeah, that affects me as an older person, but it tells us something about the entire geographic thing. As somebody said, there's no point in having digital literacy if you don't have books.
And it's hard to, in the older population, it's going to be even harder to gather data from. So it's almost like we have to lean on the kids because they're everywhere to get the data points, because they might be the most technical, they might be the ones that have the best ability to use the technology.
They're just there.
Well,
Once there's some service, then there'll be something to teach older people about.
well, there's one issue I see with using the Chromebooks. Not that it won't provide good data, it will, but they do touch in this report, though briefly, upon the fact, and they talk about particularly Pocasset and Katomet have the most seasonal residents. Okay, so the seasonal residents, the people I know, when I go take my dog for a walk, along Monument Avenue, and you look and half those houses are closed up for the winter.
Mhm.
And you also look at what they have for cable service, and you see this stuff hanging off the poles. So
Mhm.
there's no way to know. And of course, they don't have students in the Bourne school system.
Yeah,
That's
so it's
why
going to be
I
a
thought of it.
limitation on that method because you can't get the data in these seasonal areas very well.
Right.
Mhm.
That's why I was thinking the only way I could think of, honestly, to gather the data would be literally a mass mailing to every taxpayer in the town or in some way. I mean, the town must have a way. I mean, they do it mostly on the internet these days to reach everybody.
Falmouth
Every
did
door
that.
direct mail.
Yeah,
Falmouth
basically.
did
Cheap
that.
because
As,
it's everywhere.
yep. As I recall, Eisenberg said Falmouth did that. They got actually it was an earmark from Vieira that paid for a survey of the entire town, and that's where they got the groundswell of support for the MLP. So they have a model for how to do it. They have the same
Well,
problems.
let's get
Go
back
ahead,
to
Anne
the
Marie.
bullets.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
just
Okay.
get back to the
that
bullets.
is a bullet. A mass mailing could be a perfectly good bullet.
Well, I think we
Yeah,
should.
but so I don't think it's a mass mailing. We can't, our response shouldn't be well, I guess we can make a recommendation, but we have to, so lack of data, right? That's the focus here, lack of data.
Right. And if you do a mass mailing, you would get the opportunity to acquire.
Right, but I think what Anne
So
Marie
if
is
we're
talking
going to
about is
gather data, it needs to dovetail into the grant. So it needs to be speed, availability, latency, uptime, that kind of data is what we
Yeah.
need more of.
Mhm.
right. But how do we respond
so
to the Cape
that's-
Cod Commission with that? I think we may lean on them and say, what way would you recommend, or do you think this is a legitimate way? Just talking briefly, because we got the letter from Mr. Eisenberg about Falmouth. The fact was, if my understanding may be wrong, I thought that originally the select board there was not in favor of the whole MLP concept, and it was the townspeople themselves, and maybe through this mailing that said, "Oh, wait a minute,
Mhm.
we all really have a problem, and maybe you're not aware of it." So they're
Bingo.
like many steps ahead of us in that way, because they've admitted it's the townspeople themselves have kind of overrode the town government and said, no, wait, you need to pay attention to that. And I don't see that groundswell here yet. I'm not sure that a mass mailing wouldn't bring that out. It might very well, if people suddenly are aware that the town is interested in looking into this. The question again is expense. So maybe we approach the Cape Cod Commission and say, would this be possible? Is there a way to get funding for this kind of a data gap?
Well, Falmouth got it from Vieira.
Well, okay.
So the
let's get
question
back to the
becomes, does
plan
it
here.
help? Does it end up helping at all? Because if
Let's get back
Yeah.
to the bullet point. Let's get back
Yeah,
to the bullet
exactly.
point.
We got to put a letter together today.
Specific bullet? According, here's what I'm hearing. That this plan lacks data, significant data in not I'm trying to phrase it such that there's not enough data points in here to truly have an understanding of the Bourne community as being underserved and or unserved.
If everybody could open up I sent a draft. I just sent everybody a draft of the letter that I started. And what I said under digital equity, existing digital equity conditions, I wrote down something like the report presents a general overview, blah, 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 blah. However, we recommend that the report present more detail on the specific stakeholder groups and their locations in Bourne. This is needed so that digital navigators or other facilitators can make contact with specific individuals to remedy their needs. Question to the commission: would more, or focused speed testing improve the accuracy of the data needed to implement the plan? For instance, to better discriminate seasonal degradations in performance, and I stop there.
Wait a minute, where am I reading that?
He just sent out an email that you have to open up.
I just opened it. It starts with the FCC Commission, FCC adopting pole attachment rules.
That doesn't sound right. It started.
No,
before the
that's-
select board.
That's the email I just opened. Says 8:40 a.m. start of comments letter. That's the attachment.
That's funny. That's
Really?
what I got.
That's what I have. It says start of comments letter, and it says DE report, and it opens to executive summary and response. That's odd. Okay. Well,
I don't know
let's,
what it is. I'm looking. The
Okay.
one I got says Bourne Select Board is pleased to provide comments on the commission's
Okay.
draft.
okay. Let's try that again. Things are funky around here in Pecasset.
Well, you got a
Okay.
reception today.
Yeah.
Today's a good day. You haven't cut out yet.
Well, yeah,
Right.
it's not raining, it's not foggy, and the leaves haven't started growing. All right.
And no one's down there.
Yeah, and nobody's here. That's what we need to do. We need to just keep the damn tourists out of town. Then everything would be fine.
Oh man, we heard that comment in another meeting. Keep the
Oh.
Cape seasonal.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Again, so my comment was generally along the same lines as Anne Marie's. However, something like we think the data need much more specificity. The report needs to present much more specificity in the data, and then after that, we recommend that the report present more detail.
So
They
we're
need
asking
more.
we're asking the Cape Cod Commission to do more work?
Yes.
Really?
Sure, why not?
Well,
We're just responding
will
to
they
what
do
they
that?
presented. We're
Right.
responding
Okay.
to what they presented, and in this plan, we feel that the data, there needs to be more data collection, more accurate data collection, more speed data collecting,
Mhm.
specific to targeting individual, stakeholder groups. And then we can say, for example, the schools or whatever target groups we want to.
Or we could just
individual
say to them,
resident-
we would like a very specific recommendation as to how to get more accurate data.
So we should probably start writing this. So who wants to be the victim? I mean,
I'm writing.
can you put it up on the screen so we can see and add as we go?
I'm actually writing it with a pen, but
One of those
Well,
things.
we're gonna need to approve it today and stuff. So
Yeah,
we,
so it's going to be approved as digital. So
okay, all right. Let me
if you
see.
can type better than I can, again, you might want to start with a draft letter. It's more a template than anything else.
Doing that,
Since we've
trying
gotta
to
get-
share my screen here. Where is that?
Wendy, too, you can verbalize the bullet points and we can talk to them and just say yes or no.
I think we should just like edit it on the screen so we all know what we're working on.
Okay.
Right.
did
I
the-
have some stuff to add at the end that don't really need a debate. They're
Okay,
just
is-
mistakes that we could.
Is everybody seeing this? What I
Yes.
just put up.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
good.
opening up bigger screen. I'll be.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
I can get slightly larger. There we go.
No, don't worry about it for me. I'm going to just.
Alrighty. So question for the
I'll sign in as another user here.
Okay. I'm just taking notes here. This isn't going to be a permanent.
Well, we got to get it in
sentence.
a letter.
Oh no,
I
Wendy,
understand
we
that.
actually need to live edit the thing.
I understand that, but we got to start somewhere.
Right.
That the obtain more granular data on specific populations or areas to identify problems. That's sort of not exactly what we want.
Maybe we gotta just be real specific. We need better speed data.
Yeah, obtaining better more extensive.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I would recommend that we obtain more and I would list the type of data we want, speed data, etc.
Yep.
Specific populations or areas to not just identify problems, but to have a better understanding of what underserved and unserved means. To have that, right? Because their definition is, it's this finite definition. It's based on just like, you know, speed, right? And people who don't have
Right.
equipment,
Right.
but it's more than that. It's more than that. And I think that's what we have to really, truly plug. That
Well, they
it's
talk
not
about it on
just
page-
about,
Yeah. So
Okay.
they talk about it on page 21, but they just say there are pockets of poor performance. Then on page 22, they say 26% of Bourne tests show that there are underserved areas.
and they
26%
did
of
say,
Bourne.
right. And they did speak to self-reporting, but I think we need to emphasize that that's really important too. That not just the speed testing, because we all have, you know, the people sitting here, you know, Wendy, you complain all the time, right? About your lack of
Speed.
service. You have equipment,
Oh, yeah.
but you,
But
you
there's
know,
nothing-
but in their minds, if you have equipment and if you have speed, you're served. But
Well, except for the
that's
fact
not
that
true.
no, it's not true.
That's
and-
not true. So
And that's why we do this.
you're served, yes, but the quality of the service doesn't meet
Right.
what our, you know, it doesn't meet the need. You're still, in my opinion, you're still considered underserved,
Oh, for sure.
right?
Yeah.
And
The definition
And based on real world performance, she is underserved. We just need to prove it because the maps are very binary.
and
In fact,
and-
that was actually one of my concerns. They're saying there's two providers out on Wings Neck, and that's
Right.
laughable because there isn't. I wouldn't be on this committee if there was another provider
Well,
on its way out
I
to
was
Wings
asking,
Neck.
like, who are the other providers? It's one of the things that's on my
Yeah.
sheet.
yeah,
Is it Verizon, FWA, or T-Mobile? And they talk about 2 census blocks. So I'm going,
So
Wings
I
Neck.
think maybe we need to say what our real problem is. We need better data to help support our challenge of these maps. You mentioned the challenge in your report. We intend to challenge, and we need as much support and data as humanly possible because based on what you found, real world, people are underserved, even though the maps are not calling it that.
And we also need to point out about the seasonal stuff because they just very briefly touch on that. And that is a major, major concern, as we all know during the summertime here, things fall apart in certain neighborhoods. And they really don't get into that very much at all. They leave, out of the report, I found only a couple of pages that really touch on, as they say, the pockets of poor performance. The rest of it seems to be how we enhance those who are underserved and who the underserved are. But as Anne Marie points out, and as I was trying to say at the beginning, is that almost everybody in town is underserved, and that's not really touched upon because we all have, yeah, it's great. I've got really good download speed. It just doesn't always happen compared to my experiences living in the greater Boston area where the reliability was probably 4 or 5 nines, as they call it, which means 99.99999%. Here it's not.
Right.
Should we put this into, during a live meeting, are we allowed to use a Google Doc if it's being live edited, recorded, and broadcast? So, because I know we don't want to spend all night here or all day here. Maybe do we put this in a live Google Doc and start adding stuff?
I can't use Google Docs. So we've got this.
Yeah, this is what it is. Yeah.
So,
but yeah, the other piece of it, speed, I think is the other piece of this in this plan, but we're talking about digital equity, which encompasses also, equipment, accessibility, education, having that knowledge. So, what else besides, we know speed is part of it, and that data and how to collect it. But what about, devices? What about the education piece that encompasses the rest of what the definition of digital equity means among you know,
Okay, so you
in the
want,
community.
we want better data on specific populations or areas. These include what? Schools,
Mhm.
schools, students, administration, blah, blah, blah.
Just, no,
Well, schools
include,
covers it.
schools covers it.
Okay. Okay, elders,
The elderly,
Absolutely, the elderly.
yeah.
right.
What else?
And seasonally impacted areas of our town.
What else?
One comment I'd like to get in there, and I don't know if it's appropriate in this particular paragraph, is just to say that the report in a number of areas identifies that Bourne and much of the rest of the county suffers from these problems,
Mhm.
and should this report recommend that the whole Cape be declared underserved? Question mark. Does that make sense? You know, if we can get them to say, gee, we think the all of the Cape is underserved and meets the definition of MBI, and then show this to MBI, who ultimately paid for this, they might listen at some point. I mean, that's
Yeah,
our
I think we
objective.
can add it in there, but I think their focus was just specific to Bourne. Right? I mean, this whole data
Right.
plan
Well,
is just
that's
specific to
true.
Bourne.
Yeah, true.
I gotta
Okay.
agree with
So-
Bob though, because this is a lot of this is a recurring theme on the whole Cape, and so the commission has noted it in a lot of areas. They all have the same problems: not enough data on the schools, elderly population, seasonally affected, and they have the best chance of getting MBI to change their stance on something. So even if it is a Hail Mary, so to speak, if they would come out and basically order MBI to like, look, let's cut to the chase and declare the whole Cape is underserved based on the data we already have, that would be a humongous move of the needle, even if it's such a low chance of happening.
I think the way to word the paragraph is saying, based on the just in terms of connectivity on the, I forget what where that figure is, but based on that figure, I think the commission should state that in their opinion, all of Bourne except for downtown Buzzards Bay is underserved. And parenthetically, and say we note that they seem to have this finding generally for the rest of much of the rest of Cape Cod. Perhaps a Cape-wide declaration of underserved is appropriate in this or other reports too.
Okay, say that again.
Okay, based on the data and maps presented, and I can't find it here right now. Give me a second to dig this up.
I'll find that.
Yeah.
Okay. On page
you know the
I
map
think
up
it, on page 21, the
Yeah, hang on,
connectivity, Bob, is that what you're referring to?
I've got one screen here. Give me a second, and it is figure 6.
Yeah, I'm looking
Okay.
at it.
Okay. Based on the service presented in figure 6, we think that the commission should state that all of Bourne except for downtown Buzzards Bay and nearby Buzzards Bay village is underserved.
Yeah, I'm looking at these second providers, and I don't know who they are.
Yeah, really.
Well, don't worry about that. But who knows
Okay,
that
I'll fix
Wings Neck
it.
could be a stray FWA signal coming from onset someplace.
No, it doesn't reach my
Be
neighborhood.
hard pressed to do 100, but that's why FWA is not allowed under a lot of the
Oh, there
grants.
was a guy on the Facebook yesterday that says, I got Comcast, I got 1 gig service, I'm fine. And he posted his speed tests, and there's one of them that goes over 300. He's got no 1 gig service.
No.
Well, anyway,
They have an upload speed. I haven't found anybody that's getting more than 35 unless you're in a commercial installation.
Yep. Well, that's what
But
he
I
says
think
he has.
But I think getting the commission to get on board and say Bourne is generally underserved, I think would be a, a major statement. And that ought to be a conclusion of the whole connectivity section. And then say, no,
if we get declared underserved, it becomes a free for all. You'd see every provider in the world rolling in trucks into town trying to figure out how to get a piece of the pie. So it's the most damage we could do, so to speak, is getting it flipped, the whole map flipped underserved.
just say, based on their own evidence, such as it is, they can come to the conclusion that Bourne is underserved, and then parenthetically say, based on other statements in the report, it appears that the rest of the towns on Cape Cod are also underserved. And the commission should state that. Okay, I got to get back to the screen.
We should buy Wendy a Chromebook and log her into Google.
Every single problem that I ever have with security or functionality goes right back to Sergi.
And you're among the more tech savvy people in town, apparently.
Uh-huh. Scary, isn't it? Okay. All right. So how does that paragraph look to you?
Okay. The rest of the towns on Cape Cod are also. This should be an explicit conclusion in the final report. Yeah. Let's get that's very good, Wendy. Let's get the other bullets down, as Anne Marie has pointed out a number of times. Get those down, and then we can do a little bit of cleanup on that.
Sure.
Afterwards. Okay, existing conditions. That's I was going section by section on this.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on existing conditions we want to put in?
I have some problems with the maps, especially when they're calling Wings Neck as doubly served, because that almost seems like a defensive maneuver by one of the providers, because parts of Wings Neck were labeled as unserved or underserved under previous FCC maps. So it almost seems like some manipulation to try to someone did a search for all underserved areas and just put in a CSV file saying, "Hey, we cover that."
Yeah.
So we might need to double check some of these places where they're saying that they have more providers than we know are
just
there.
say we question the accuracy of some of the specific areas on Figure 6, for instance. Two service providers on Wings Neck, and just leave it at that, and that'll force them to go back.
Oh, it gets worse than that. Like when I pull up MBI's, they're trying to find the back data. MBI lists as FiOS is on Wings Neck as well, which we know is not true.
Okay.
Multiple reliable, I would say multiple reliable providers. Add the word reliable between multiple providers. It's a slight dig at FWA, since it's not considered reliable under a lot of the grants.
Okay, anything else on connectivity? Because I want to try to go through this as fast as we can.
Okay, we're going to make this a bullet point.
Also, Sagamore. Who is the second provider across the canal in Sagamore? Sagamore has only got Comcast there, and so they have 113.
Yeah.
They're saying it doesn't make any sense. Who is it? Where'd they
But
get
do
that
they
data
also
from?
consider, you know, like T-Mobile, like cellular devices too? I think is that what
So it
they're
depends
speaking
on.
to, or are they only speaking to Wi-Fi connectivity?
So it depends exactly which grant. Some of them don't allow fixed wireless or unlicensed fixed wireless, and so it gets a little messy. So it depends on the exact grant who defines it as what, and so that will cause sometimes a flip in a map with FWA being there or not.
And I am aware that there is FWA in places in Monument Beach and Pocasset, because we've seen people talk about it on the Bourne page. And I asked Jed about it because I said I didn't know Verizon was doing that over on this side of the bridge, and he said, "Oh yes." In fact, I thought he said that he might actually have it as his secondary network.
He has a DSL as his secondary,
his
and
DSL is
Comcast
secondary. Okay.
yeah, with
Yeah.
a dual WAN router. Yeah, so one of their comments was people can use mobile as a secondary, but I was like, that's actually requires quite a bit of sophistication, more than most people are going to have. You know, Jed has a dual WAN router with 2 networks. That's like I don't know of many people that even know that exists, first of all. And secondly, if they're referring to hotspotting off of phones, that might be difficult for the elderly population. So I was a little confused as seeing that as why that's even listed as an option, because it's not a particularly accessible one.
Right. Plus, the other issue you run into there is expense. Most people don't have high limits on their cell phone accounts. So if you start creating Wi-Fi hotspots off of your phone, you start running through your monthly data like crazy.
No kidding. That's what we do at our house. I pay for unlimited data on 3 lines, and that's the only way I can watch television.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, my wife's got a plan where she only has 1 gig a month, so she does very little in terms of any data work on her cell phone. Okay.
Yep.
She pays $20 a month for it.
1
and a
gig
lot
a
of
month.
seniors
Wow.
do.
Right. So
Let's get back to the bullets. Let's get back to the bullets.
Let's go.
It's a
Okay.
real problem.
I'm bulleting here.
Right.
Okay.
So,
The next thing.
do we have anything else under existing conditions?
Yeah. I want to go to page 25 on data gaps, information gaps. It would seem to me that that's a place, a third bullet there. They say, you know, the second bullet says continued exploration of data related to the experiences of these populations, which are the BEAD digital equity populations, would benefit future implementation strategies. I would say I'll even ask for a third bullet there and say, with regard to information gaps, we request that the commission provide much more specificity on their recommendations for what extra data are needed and how those data should be collected. If everybody can excuse me for 30 seconds, I've been drinking coffee since 6:30 this morning and I've got to make room for more. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Maybe one thing, if you finish writing that thought, and I'll have one thing to add to the end of it.
Okay. Yeah, that also says the project explored covered populations identified by the Digital Equity Act. However, federal broadband or BEAD program identified underrepresented communities who do also face heightened barriers to achieving digital equity. That's the speed tests and however else we care to get that information.
I'm not sure if this is implementation. If it finishes this way, an idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm back for what it's worth.
Okay. Mm. Is that what we're looking at here?
I think we might want to at least have some point in there that we're specifically interested in stuff that leads to more grant funding.
Yeah, got
It
that.
might need to be a. Oh, there you go. There we
Yeah.
go. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful words.
Excellent.
Okay, anything else besides mailing a survey to everybody, the Chromebooks for the kids? How else would they like this data to come in?
Data that MBI would accept for grants. Gotta call it what it is instead of beating around the bush.
With regards to mailed survey, maybe we should put in parentheses, including of seasonal residents. So you'd use like the tax base or whatever, like for, I had this house for more than 10 years, but my mailing address was still Natick.
Yeah.
And so they knew where they could find me, and I got all the town stuff that was necessary. All my bills came there and any town announcements.
Mm-hmm.
So to make sure to reach the seasonal residents, because I think that you're going to find a pocket of people there who have concerns.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a statement to put in under the next one, under the community engagement section.
Okay, do we,
Uh,
before we leave
Speed
that, is there anything else
speed
here?
tests have to be added to the data. Speed, latent. I think we need to add speed testing, and then in brackets, latency, reliability, uptime. Define it not just as speed.
Speed testing and recommendations for documenting reliability or deficits in reliability, I should say.
Excuse me. Reliability. Anything else? Year round.
I don't know how we could use it as to get specific data to get grants, but more documentation of the problems that that seniors have specifically.
Mhm.
Well, they talked
You know.
about what did they call it? Digital something or other. Digital.
Navigators.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought that was a big point. And I thought it was a good point, and it's a point that Tony has brought up numerous times as to what they had to do in Westfield, that they basically had to have that the people that they had on staff could do this, because I could
Right.
see, the a lot of this stuff. I say I'm a technical person and I get it, but to try to explain to someone where they might be having a problem with the DHCP implementation in their wireless router is a little complex if you don't have a basic understanding of how digital data is transmitted. You
But
don't get it.
But
So
yeah,
but I think this thing only talks about those digital navigators as something that they would provide after the plan is in
yeah,
place.
that's down in
Right.
implementation.
So that's not gonna
Yeah.
it's not gonna help us much for looking at existing conditions.
Yeah, I think, under community engagement, what I'd like to say is, the section on community engagement, just say one something simple. The commission, we applaud the commission for making great efforts to try to engage the community. But I think they and we were disappointed with the relatively small turnout. And in a town with 20,000 residents or 20,000 year-round residents and a lot of seasonal ones, we were only able to engage a few hundred.
Well, a few
And,
hundred is actually probably a lot more than a lot of other places get, but
well, it's true, but we worry that seniors and other homebound people did not participate at all, and we don't fully understand their needs. Excellent, the non-drivers.
yeah, really. The yeah. Blah, 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 blah. Damn it. Such a bad typist. All right.
And just leave it at that. And we would appreciate any I don't know, detailed recommendations for well, that's all in implementation, never mind. But just point out that again, what we got from the community engagement may not be fully representative of the town.
Mhm.
Okay, key
It
findings.
was also done not during peak season, right?
Right.
When
Right.
was it done?
Right.
So
November.
it did not
November.
encompass our I peak population, seasonal population. Didn't capture that.
Yeah, the timing of the whole community engagement was essentially off season
Mhm.
and missed. And that they're not just residents, but some of the major activity in town.
Mhm.
And as we know, a lot of those seasonal residents live in the areas where we have the sketchiest service.
Right.
This underrepresented the what? This underrepresentation. Hmm.
Well, it contributed to the lack of accuracy in the data, a true picture of the data for the town as a whole. 'Cause we need to
Excellent
take
wording.
into consideration, our seasonal population as well.
Hmm. Okay. How's that?
I like that.
Yeah, that's good. Excellent.
Good.
Okay. So
Okay, shall we go on?
I'm just
Do we-
trying to kind of get ahead to what was the other implementation thing that was related to that? Oh, we can come back to that. Excuse me. Mm.
Well, the implementation was,
Mm.
more and more specific data. Uh,
Mm.
you know, the-
Mm. Well, we'll get to that.
yeah. Okay.
I'm just trying to put some prompts down there so we can
Yeah,
come back
sounds
to
good.
it. Okay, anything else for community engagement?
We can leave it at that. I don't think we're going to pound on it under recommendations or implementation down below.
Okay, because they did have that meeting over at town hall with excuse me, representatives from the library and the Council of Aging and us and all sorts of other people.
Right. But we
Right,
could
and
not get them to
exactly.
have a meeting over here
Mm-hmm.
on
Yeah,
this
and they
side.
had exactly 4 private citizens in that meeting.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Anything under key findings?
Well, I think we can comment on the connectivity issue once again. I mean, we're saying this over and over that unreliable and spotty internet and cellular service across Bourne. Okay, I think that heading once again, we think the evidence is sufficient for the commission to basically make the declaration that almost all of Bourne appears to be underserved, and within the definitions of the upcoming grant programs.
Okay, say that again. We're under key findings now.
Under key findings and under connectivity, and I just put the heading there: unreliable and spotty internet and cellular service across Bourne in quotes. That's a heading in the whole thing. Just put that first heading in quotes. You can clean it up in a bit.
Yeah.
We think the report sufficiently documents
Mm.
that almost all of Bourne is underserved. Comma, meeting the definition of both the digital equity and BEAD grant programs. Brian, where else is underserved defined in all of these laws?
Each of them defines it slightly differently, and it's usually right in the beginning.
But I mean, the big ones are certainly
BEAD,
the
BEAD and
BEAD,
GAP.
BEAD, GAP, and the digital equity program, which is under ARPA, right?
Yeah. Muni grants separate. It's a different standard altogether.
Yeah. Wendy, it says,
Yes.
I think it should say, the report speaks to all of Bourne as being underserved.
Yeah.
But they do only say, they say 26% on page, it's 22, I think.
Well, other data sources say it's higher than that.
Right.
Microsoft
Yeah.
speed test data
Yeah,
says
Yeah.
it's higher.
That's that I think we need, that's what we need to point out.
Mm.
Yeah, they probably should reiterate that data in this report, since I think that data is still relevant.
Okay.
And the Ookla data, or I think they mentioned it in there, didn't they?
Yeah, they mentioned Ookla.
if you want to encompass it all, I think I wouldn't quote any particular page. I would just quote that the data reported in this plan speaks to, all of Bourne being underserved.
Okay. I don't know. I like to put in quotes so people can think we're not just, talking off through our hat. But
the data's there in the plan. If we reference the data collected in the plan speaks to all of Bourne.
They also talked about they're going to have
As-
data appendices, which aren't in this draft. Okay,
especially the south side.
right. By the way, it's also Sagamore Beach and Sagamore. They're not. I won't say they're kind of orphans, but our particular perspective on this committee is much more, the south side here as opposed to the east end of town. But
the data shows that they don't have the best time there. It appears to be the problem is a little bit less pronounced in Catawba and Bocasset, but they're slightly worse than Monument Beach. If I remember correctly from the Ookla data. Buzzards Bay downtown part seemed fine.
But it's almost all of Bourne. What is it? Buzzards Bay service is 12% of Bourne, the population. Yeah. And I think we ought to say, actually, they asked them to make a declaration, even in the heading, that just say Bourne. So Bourne is largely underserved.
It should be their headline finding, because the unreliable service drives most of the other issues.
Just say suggest add, right after that, leave that one where it is, Wendy, and right after that heading and just say, hyphen, suggest add, quote, so Bourne appears to be largely underserved.
Okay, like that?
So, well, I was going to say add to that heading, unreliable and spotty internet and cellular service across Bourne, hyphen,
Yeah, I'll
put a
figure out
hyphen.
the punctuation later. Okay.
Yeah. Suggest add that Bourne appears to be largely underserved, in quotes.
What this is?
Yeah, that just add to that heading, it suggests that Bourne is largely, quote, underserved.
Mhm.
And I put that all in quotes, and in between I'd say, where I had that hyphen, I'd say suggest the commission add
Mhm. Mhm.
And I would say, after underserved, I would say we recommend adding this conclusion to this heading.
Mhm.
And
Okay,
it's
so
unreliable and spotty internet and cellular services across Bourne.
yeah. All right, internet and cellular service
Across
across
Bourne.
Bourne. There we go.
So, and that's a pretty telling statement to
Yeah.
make.
Right.
It doesn't say in certain pockets, it says across Bourne.
Across
So
Bourne. Right.
I think to
Yeah.
piggyback on that and to emphasize it is important.
And if we can get them to make the connection to quote underserved, and have shove that down the throat of MBI
Mhm.
when they start handing out grant money, or not
We
handing
shouldn't
out
say
grant
we
money.
think. We say when we start saying things like in my opinion or we think, that weakens things. We don't have to say that we think so. It does document that this is well done. Okay. Okay. And this is a little redundant here, but like this. Hmm. Undeserved. Yeah, well, that too. This is redundant. There we go. Here we go. How's that?
Warn us. Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay, moving on. Is there something
Yeah.
else about a key finding?
No, I,
Should we say why services is underserved? Is it's partly due to what the ISPs give us. It's partly due to the lack of infrastructure that we have here.
Well, yeah.
No, I think simply stating that and put the onus on them maybe to further explore why, right? Because that might be in the next steps, right?
Well, right. If
Okay.
you look at pages 34 and 35, they talk about barriers and challenges. Community members frequently reported poor internet and cellular service in their homes or across key locations in town.
Mhm.
Community members named geography, weather, and a lack of competition as contributing factors towards unsatisfactory internet service. The residents reported dead zones. They got this part of it very, very well.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, they didn't really get a lot of residents responding to this in a way that, like I said, that would be, I think, overwhelmingly communicative of what we know the problems are, just because enough people didn't really participate.
They have it in a general broad brush. Again, they just need more data to get this very specific. You know, we've said that up above, so I think we're okay there. One of the key findings that needs to be addressed again, and I dropped that in, just cut and pasted it out of the text, is, Wendy, way up above, I had put that problematic sentence: capacity and funding challenges impacted entities' ability to develop and maintain new
Wait,
programs.
where are we?
Go up to the top of, just go to the top of whatever I wrote there. Where did it go? Okay. No, I had cut and pasted something in. What I did is I cut and pasted the whole paragraph, or it's a half a paragraph. Go down to, did it disappear? I think it disappeared.
We may have relocated it to
Yeah.
Existing conditions.
Well, this was under key findings. Okay, that quote from page 37. Is it further down? Just scroll down and see if it's down on the bottom.
Oh, there we go.
There it is.
Yes.
There it is. I'd cut that whole section up and put it under key findings.
Oops, just a sec.
Well, yeah, obviously it's a separate bullet, but
Yeah.
yeah, just drop that in there.
Okay.
And I would just say, just say this paragraph is very general and vague and is not understood. I don't know what else you can say.
Okay.
I think perhaps speak to the hows, the how.
Yeah.
The recommendation, it's a valuable recommendation. However, the capacity and the path to navigate this is, you know, we need guidance.
We need
Yeah, I
detailed
agree with you
guidance on
there.
how
Like
to
a good
implement
report
this.
can go to
Yes.
waste without actionable tools, so to speak. You know,
Well, we'll get to that
this is
under
the choice of
implementation.
steps.
We'll get into that under implementation, which is the meat of the whole thing here. But
Well,
just
well,
pointing out that
wouldn't this go under, blech.
well,
Wouldn't this
that's
go under implementation then?
well,
Because it
I don't know
doesn't,
why under there's an implementation section, implementation challenges under key findings. Okay.
mm,
And just pointing out that just say we need more specificity, and it's not clear what it refers to what it refers, and we need specific guidance or an example on how to do
Yeah.
this. And that's really what we want. I mean, I don't know what the heck that means or how to put that into action. And the select board's not going to know how to do that.
Right, and you can say that, what actionable steps are needed to be taken,
Right.
or what actionable steps can we access to accomplish this narrative or this recommendation.
Yeah, and who can be hired and how do we pay for it?
I think actionable steps encompasses,
Yeah.
the how.
Who, what,
how
when,
to.
how, and how much.
mhm.
Right.
How's that?
How to accomplish better results. All of these are.
Mhm.
We're coming up on 10 a.m. and that's
Yeah,
I gotta get to the
Yeah.
office at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
witching
me
hour.
too.
But if we can
Right.
go quickly through implementation and do a broad brush on this, so that when Anne Marie has to leave, we get
Mhm.
the most important pieces down. The big thing on implementation is, for me, and just real quick, is again, just talking here, not putting words down, is that they keep mentioning a regional approach would be valuable.
Mhm.
A regional approach would be valuable. We ought to ask specifically, can you give examples of how this might be implemented, or who might take the lead on a regional approach? Would the Cape Cod Commission be interested or be capable of doing this? I mean,
I think, right, and I think too, it almost speaks to having a master plan for the county, right?
right.
Yeah,
Well-
it does, and that would be the exact right solution, because it would save everybody money in the bottom line. We don't need to have 5 administrators when we could do it with 1 or 1.5.
Right, so I think maybe, I don't, right, and again, this plan is specific to Bourne, but are we, based on the recommendations, would a master plan county-wide help in accomplishing digital equity in our town?
Yeah, if we can get the data to turn the whole county into underserved.
How would that
I think-
benefit Bourne, right? Because we want it to come
Say
back to
that-
us.
Say that again.
I just said, would a master plan county-wide to accomplish digital equity, would a master plan county-wide help in providing digital equity in the town of Bourne? Or accelerate or accomplish, or, something along that lines, seek to better serve the community of Bourne? because we want to bring it back to us, but at the
Mhm.
same time, put the thought perhaps that a county-wide master plan could very well benefit the town of Bourne.
There's definitely potential that a county plan would benefit Bourne if done well, especially since it's a lot of the same
Yeah, right.
stuff over
Would
and over
ben-
again, town by town.
I would say would benefit Bourne and leave it at that. Don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then a question mark. And then if so, could the commission provide a straw outline for such an implementation plan? Just ask them to put that right in the report. I'm sure they're thinking about it.
I would say, okay, go ahead and finish, Wendy, and then in the first sentence, so.
Yeah, just a second. Here we go. Okay, go ahead.
I think a countywide master plan to address inequities would benefit Bourne in reaching their digital equity goal.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Or in reaching the digital equity gap or divide. I think divide is
Well,
right.
address, well, you,
Addressing, right?
yeah,
Or
you,
Yeah.
just addressing these digital equity deficits.
divide. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the
Divide's good.
divide's the word they use.
Yeah. Excellent.
okay. We could even just leave it at that.
Yep. Yep.
How's that?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, so what else have we got here? Digital navigators, when conditions. For that, obtaining more, these have got to be reordered, I think, but put that up there. Anybody else?
They talk about a digital equity network within the town of Bourne, and talk about all of the pieces, but don't talk about how to actually accomplish that. We need more specificity on how to implement a digital equity network within the town of Bourne.
As they were talking about having one navigator to advise a couple of towns at the same time.
Yeah, just a thought. It might be a request, an ask from them is to come up with a template for a digital equity network that Bourne could use and would also be applicable to other towns.
We might ask specifically what they are recommending in terms of staffing. Because it seemed a little vague when I read it. They talk about navigators, they talk about supplementing the town IT staff. in their considered opinion, what would they recommend as an ideal staffing solution? Because then we have some idea what we're looking at in terms of number of positions, and then from that we can maybe extract a funding number. Because they talk
That's a
about
good
that
comment.
frequently.
Be concrete of the number of bodies you're asking for, so we can go figure out how
That
much
will
money
aid in
that is.
that
and
will
where
aid
we're
in the
gonna get it.
specifics of a grant requests. That's the bottom line.
Okay, so for an
Yeah, because we
ideal,
know we need a number for speed and gap and all that administrative time. So if the commission could tell us, like, okay, it's going to be this many hours of people, for the next couple of grants, I think that's a concrete number that'd be helpful to us.
Yeah.
So you want, so
yeah.
I think,
A third of a person for the rest of the year.
I think we're asking for is please supply a plan
Yeah.
for an ideal, for such a network, or,
Uh,
detailed plan.
a much more detailed plan to help us implement this.
I need to go, sorry,
Okay.
but,
So we're pretty close on this, Anne Marie. If I've still got
yeah,
control, what we'll do is clean this up in the rest of the meeting, and then send it on to you to give to MJ.
yeah, clean it up, and then so send it to the town administrator, MJ, and, myself.
Okay.
Okay.
what I'll do, I'll clean it up and I'll send it to everybody to make sure that it reflects what people want to see, and then Bob can send it on along to whoever. Is
Okay.
that okay?
Yep. That sounds
Okay.
good.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Sure.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Thanks for your forbearance. Anne Marie, real quick,
Sure.
just to let you know, you've heard about this boundless proposal being made to Falmouth.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
also. I was on a call. Brian and I were on a tech council call with them, and they indicated interest in talking to Bourne.
Okay. Well, let's get
Excellent.
that on the agenda for next week and explore that.
Yeah,
There's a
I'll
lot
put that
of interesting stuff there.
Yeah, I'll put that and this on the agenda for next week. I'll modify the agenda. We're going
Okay.
to revisit this certainly.
Right. Though
Okay.
David's letter is on this week's agenda, I believe.
Yeah, we can't revisit the letter, so,
Right.
because it's going on Tuesday.
Right. I'm
Well,
sorry,
I know, but
Dave-
we can
David-
You
talk
gotta
about
get
we can talk about the select board's just how to present it to the select board. So certainly and going over it, presenting what we sent off to the select board to the other couple of members is useful. And
Okay,
again, we've only got 4 of us here, so
okay. All
we're
right,
not going to revise it. We're just going to talk about it.
right,
okay.
just review what we sent. I
Review
understand.
again.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. I just redid this last paragraph. I think it sounds to me like the first thing we really need is better data.
Yep, and I think we need them to point out, we're going to ask them about staffing, because I think that if they make recommendations, we have something solid to present to the select board. Because I think that's a stumbling block here.
Mm.
Yeah, this is all very vague, and if any of the select board members read this, they're going to be scratching their head and saying, "Okay, well, how the hell do we do this?"
Well, exactly, and they
Yeah.
don't put that up, but they point out that it needs to be done. They just don't say how. So we're
Right.
asking them how, and they're the administrative experts. And
Yeah, well, that's why I put this in here.
right. Today's agenda does include a brief discussion of the letter that appeared in the Falmouth Enterprise, because I wanted to get to that briefly at some point.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. Just because it was fascinating to see, and Wendy published it on the
Bourne list.
right. So my wife saw it and said, "Have you
We
seen
can't
this?" And I said,
discuss
"Yeah."
it. Is it on the? Oh, wait, was it on the agenda? Was the
I put
Falmouth
it on the
thing
It's on
agenda.
the agenda.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah,
looking at
okay,
the
okay.
agenda.
And I'll put it on the
There's a
agenda
brief
again for next
discussion
week.
of
Yeah.
Okay, so this is
Wendy, can we turn this over to you when we get offline for you to
I'll
just
st-
put this in English? I don't think they would object. We're not adding extra content to it.
probably not. I did. Did you see what I added to the list? This last paragraph here or up here?
Let's see. Okay, more focused. Excellent. Right. Funding, technical support, staffing. Woohoo. Yeah, got them.
Okay. All right. So I'll format this and get the typos and all that other crap. What do you want to put in here for like a header, or do you want to write your own header?
Well, I just put, we'll send this, just leave it like that. I would say we have the following comments, necessarily brief because of lack of time. That paragraph you just eliminated, you can put that sentence, you
Okay.
can put,
Bob, do we need to
Oops.
officially vote and approve this?
yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to? Can you approve it pending my fixing typos and punctuation
sure.
and formatting?
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. Minor editorial stuff, putting it into English is perfect. Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I motion to approve this set of recommendations to the select board.
Okay,
Sure.
a second.
Move to approve,
Second.
and with giving Wendy's grammatical and punctuation type
Grammatical and
and,
punctuation, editorial license. Right.
editorial,
There we go.
passive to active, active to passive.
Yeah, all
that
pull
crap.
out your whole book of
Okay,
style there, but
so this
content wise remains the same.
this is a letter for the select board to send themselves.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah,
This
the select
isn't-
board will send this to the Cape Cod Commission.
Yeah, this is not
With
something that we are
their edits.
recommending that or should we say we're recommending that the select board send?
No.
No.
We write it in the active voice
I
of the
will
select
do
board.
my transmittal to the all select board and to the administrator.
The powers
Please
that
put
be,
this
yes.
on the agenda. We recommend that the select board approve this for transmittal to the Cape Cod Commission by their deadline of March 25th. That's
I
what
will-
my email to
okay.
them will say.
I will leave that to you.
Yeah,
then. I
save
won't
them from
put it-
having to rewrite it, and they can just make their edits in it if they don't agree with anything in here or want to
Right.
add anything.
What is the sentence? This is needed so digital navigators can make contact with specific individual, remedy their needs. What does that mean? Who are we talking about here?
I don't know where that came from. Okay.
It came in your letter.
It really did?
It
Okay.
really did.
I dropped it in the wrong place then. Kind of just
Okay,
eliminate it.
then we'll get
Yeah.
that. We're going.
Yeah, maybe they add that to where we need to clarify. What does what does this mean?
Someplace in implementation is where navigators are down below.
Yeah, we covered navigators, I think.
Okay. Digital net, yeah, you don't need, so that sentence can go away.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
And then you might put a sentence at the end. Thank you for your hard
Thank you
work
for your
on
kind
this.
attention. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we are obviously available to discuss any of these points in more detail. And Marlene will freak, obviously, because anytime you talk about talking more, doing more, it costs time and money. She doesn't have either.
Right. That's exactly the problem.
But this
Yep.
is why we keep saying, and
We're
I
here to
hope
help.
I hope Anne Marie emphasizes this. This is why we would put that sort of thing into any grant proposal, which we would
Right.
be happy to write because we're good about that sort of thing.
Yep.
But I get their
Okay.
point. I think, didn't they have something going on with the Hoxie school or something where
Oh,
they
they've got all sorts of stuff, and they've
Oh, the
got that.
Hoxie school
and so I
almost
get
came.
what they're doing. They're saying we have to oversee everything to make sure there's no malfeasance going on, because that looks really
Okay, and
bad.
and you recall again with the kerfuffle with the Department of Public Works,
Oh, yes.
where the bottom line stayed the same, but money was being moved around within accounts, and there was just a
That's a big
uh,
no-no. From my years of administrating budgets that were handed to me, you never ever move capital money into expense. You do that, and
yeah.
it's a
Anyway,
real problem.
yeah, and I can appreciate that. So we're going to try to do everything we can to minimize the burden and find other sources of funding to pay for the administrative cost of this.
Yes, we can do that. It's
Okay.
quite doable.
Okay, so Kathleen knows how to put the signature at the bottom for this select board's approval, so she can format that.
Right.
Wendy, I have I've got an 11 o'clock appointment up in Plymouth. And if I can turn this over to you to clean up, you can send it to me for transmittal, and I'll get it out when I get back late this afternoon. It could even be, I'll have it there first thing in the morning, and there'll be plenty of time to get on the agenda.
Do you want it in Word? Do you want it pasted into an email so you can then paste it into your stationery, or what do you want?
No. Just do it just like this. It's in Word.
Okay.
Keep it in Word, and they may want to play with it, and certainly Kathleen will clean it up when it finally goes out.
Well, we'll find out about how that works out.
Well, it does. She does a good job on that. Okay. Okay. Moving on. Let's talk briefly about the David Eisenberg letter and the boundless proposal.
But I have a quick comment about that. I read that, and I was very pleased to see that David's letter was very well written. The one thing I'd ask, and Brian may know this, if I recall properly, the town put up the money for the original Tilson study. Is that correct?
There was an earmark, I believe, or it came from the Economic Development Committee. So it's sort of a separate budget.
Right. So what I'm thinking is that at that point, Tilson realized that they were serious, that they were ready to proceed. And I'm wondering whether or not, if we joined in them, what kind of economic commitment the town would have to make in order to
What's changed since then is they have private equity investors, so that adds another element to this.
Well, one of the things that what's her name, Gigi Sohn, was saying is that that depends on how you write your contract. And if you write your contract such that they own it lock, stock, and barrel no matter what, then they could sell it tomorrow to Comcast. But if you write your contract such that they get their investment repaid with a reasonable excess return on investment, and then the control reverts to the town or something like that, then that's really, I think, what she was recommending.
Well, we did those structures all the time in the power space, where it's like X number of years exclusive contract reverts to whomever, or like you limit the return on equity to a certain amount. There's mechanisms for this.
The real question right now is the town doesn't know, other than giving them a business license, what they have to approve. They might have to approve putting a wire house or something like that on some public space. But other than that, they don't, maybe approve some extra telephone poles. But other than that, this is a private business that's trying to just do business in town. They don't have any say at all.
Well, so there's a couple of factors, yes and no. So they want, if with private equity backers, with the amount of cost of that capital, they're worried about half a point a week in equity costs. So every delay is actually very costly. So they want the town to be on board to expedite the permitting process, assign an omnibus person that's the main point of contact for them. The other issue is presumably they're going to go after gap round 2 grants and or BEAD grants wherever it's accessible. So some of their initial investment is going to be offset by grants, and so the priority winner of those grants has the support of the town. So yeah, they're putting up the money, but it's also you need the town's consent for the grant money, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, again, and Brian and I were on a call with the Technology Council, and I came in a bit late, but they actually Boundless came on the call and hijacked it. It looks like, but they're talking about they said they were interested in providing service to the Cape, starting with Falmouth, and they basically were interested in talking to Bourne. They wanted to know the names of all of the towns that were actually on that call yesterday. There weren't many, but Harwich was there. We were there. I forget, somebody else might have been. And they're going to be on their call, the infrastructure committee call next week with a big presentation. And when I get that information, I'll pass it around, and anybody else can just sign on board to listen in.
Right. Is it worth it for us to talk to the people in Falmouth first, or go directly to Boundless and get some preliminary information?
Talk to Falmouth first. So so Boundless, because they currently don't have any restrictions, so to speak, they can promise whatever they want, but until it's in a contract, no one really knows what they're going to do.
Do you suppose we could get them to just contract with Pecasset and Katamet?
I don't know whether there'd be an economic model to do that. Maybe.
Well,
gap round 2 doesn't require coverage of a whole town and is more aimed at municipalities, supposedly. So potentially with a gap plan, maybe, but this would be a lot of heavy lifting in a hurry.
Geographically, if they're going right to the North Falmouth border, heading north and going up as far as wherever it is, Monument Beach or the town forest, which is as far as Verizon is going south, that adds another 5,000 customers perhaps to them very quickly. And it's not geographically, it's not a huge stretch compared to some other areas in Falmouth that they promised to cover.
Yeah,
so we really need to be talking to the Falmouth team for sure.
How do we go about that? Is there somebody do we have a contact in Falmouth? I don't know if we do. Jed was involved with kind of watching what's going on Wendy.
Well,
and Wendy,
my personal contact was Sam Patterson, and he's resigned, so I'm done with that. But it seems to me that Mr. Eisenberg would be more than happy to talk to any of us.
Yeah, is not.
So Eisenberg isn't on the MLP. I think I have the email of one of the MLP's members.
I understand that, but he would know who good people to be.
He's an informed bystander. He's a very informed witness from the side. So
he could share some of that information.
Should we invite him to the next meeting, or just one of us get in touch with him, directly? And
well, I'll do that again.
I think we need to speak formally with the MLP because I think it might need to be exact. I think we're negotiating a contract. We're going to be asking about terms of a contract. So, is that executive session?
Theirs will be, but it may be that perhaps Bob could talk with somebody there offline or informally and say, what should we be considering, without telling us the specifics of their contract, which I can understand why they would want to keep that confidential.
And again, that's purely under information gathering. So we're not making any commitments or anything on behalf of the town of Bourne.
Absolutely.
I've got Jim Newman's email. Do you maybe want to email him, Bob, and CC me, and we can maybe set up a time to talk to them?
Just to get a broad idea, then maybe we should talk directly to Boundless and just get like an overview of what they're talking about. Because
next week they're going to give that to the Technology Council. So
right, and you guys are going to be on that. We have a limit as to how many of us can be on that.
Yeah, we'll get a recording and circulate it. So
okay. Because I get those emails about the tech, but I thought I'm kind of forbidden because we can't have a quorum there. So we have
Yeah,
to be
we've only-
careful.
So it's usually Bob and myself, so a third is probably okay. But if we ever get a fourth hop on, we can always have someone drop off.
Right. Well, like I said, let's we'll figure out exactly where that's going, and just try to get information first from their presentation, and then ask Falmouth to give information on where they're headed, and then we can give guess what, we're coming up on the need for another quarterly report to the select board.
Well, yeah. But on the record, I'll say this: increased competition, I'm entirely in favor of.
Absolutely.
Even if Verizon says we're going to build out the network, and they've been a little mysterious about that, these guys have come on, at least for the town of Falmouth, have said some very positive things in terms of cost, and they're talking about a 1 gig bi-directional system. Wow. I mean, was beyond my wildest dreams. I love that.
Right.
Yeah, so we and it all comes down to the contract language, because if there's private equity involved, they're going to have a 7-year exit time horizon. So the question is going to be, what's your exit? And then, is that rate sustainable that they're coming in at? It might not be, based on the math. We've kind of poked around at the numbers of what this is going to cost. Their numbers might not be sustainable, but they are attention grabbing.
$55 a month is could just be a loss leader.
That's less than Taunton for that level of speed. I'm sure that the thing is, and I'm not sure that everybody needs that level of speed. If you can
not
it
right
doesn't really
now.
matter the speed. It costs the same amount to hang it on the pole.
Right.
So they run into the same problems everyone before them has run into: bad poles, spread out houses, seasonality. So it's not like they have any real advantage other than they've already done the Falmouth legwork. So they already know what the poles on the ground look like better than anyone else, and they also know
They've got
they have
Dawson's
private equity
feasibility
back.
study.
Right.
Yeah, they have a feasibility study, and they have all the raw data that they didn't release, so they have a slight information advantage. But coming to Bourne, they have all the same hurdles everyone else faces. Bad poles.
Sure. And the other thing is, not everybody, quote, needs, unquote, 1 gig service right now. But it wasn't really that many years ago that people would say, well, we don't really need anything more than a party line.
Well,
we're good with that. And
you remember the first investors to an inventor 150 years ago. Well, that's very interesting, Mr. Bell. It's a nice toy, but what good is it?
yeah.
A bunch of investors walked away from Alexander Graham Bell.
They were sorry.
But anyway, having said that, I mean, what they're doing is they're future-proofing the system. They're putting it up there.
Yeah.
Right.
And
the
again,
cost is essentially the same regardless of speed, so it doesn't really matter what the speed is.
So, Brian,
Right.
I have a question that you would know the answer to, maybe. Do they have to, or is it advisable to have a company like this put up some kind of a performance bond? The thing that would get to me is they're halfway through and go, whoops, we miscalculated. We
A
need
performance
more.
bond would be part of the construction contractor's scope of work. So when they get their bids on their construction contractor, the contractor is bondable. And so the bonds are only a financial guarantee that they don't run out of money during construction. So those cost about 1% of the construction cost, give or take. They're not like insurance. It's a little different. So it'd be the construction contractor that's bonded. Typically, everyone ends up using the same installers. There's a handful of companies that hang stuff on poles in eastern and southeastern Massachusetts. We've been in contact with one of them in the past. So, everyone kind of runs into the same issues here. You got the same contractors are going to be hanging on the same poles. So it's not like anyone has a secret sauce, so to speak, with this.
Okay, so they would.
They might just have a little more experience.
I was just concerned of, well, we're halfway through. This happens a lot, a lot of government inspired projects.
Well, so typically it's government work that requires the bond to be put up. My father's an expert in construction surety bonding, so that would be a simple phone call to figure out who we got to call to sort that out. So
Good.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
There is
Okay.
light at the end of this tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be very nice, frankly, if this were to go forward and there was some eventual arrangement with Bourne, then our problems become very easy. I mean, just finding grants to fill in some of the digital equity gaps on hardware, learning, et cetera. If this connectivity problem is solved by Boundless or Tilson or whoever they are, I think we would be in really good shape, and we could,
Oh, yeah.
dial back to meeting once a month or once a
Mm.
quarter. Who knows?
And I've said for a long time that connectivity is really the problem. Everything else is just details,
Mhm.
because if you
It's
don't have
devil's in the
connectivity, you can't do
details.
anything.
Yeah, there are
Yeah,
numerous
yeah.
devils
As
there.
long as we get fiber, I think we're in a better place.
Right.
Fixed wireless is just training a new devil,
Yep.
so to
Okay.
speak.
Too many.
With
I
that, it's almost 10:30. I'm going to have to adjourn right now because I've got to leave. I've got to hit the road to get to Plymouth. And Wendy, you can
I'll
take
take
your
care of
time
it.
if
I'll
you
get it
need.
off to you sometime soon.
If you need to get it this evening again, because if I get delayed in the dentist chair up there, I might be a while getting back, and might not get it into them at the close of business today. So it'll be their first opening of business tomorrow morning.
Oh, I'll have it done. Well, it's 10:30 now. I can't see this is going to take me that long. I should have it to your inbox by 2 o'clock, if not sooner.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
All right, very good.
Okay, folks. Okay, thank you so much for your time.
What we do for fun.
Take
Buy
care.
lottery
Bye,
tickets.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Wendy, thank
Bye.
you so much for turning this into English.
What we do for fun.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.